Hello and welcome to the theElpyDimension. I am your guide, LP. Today is the 27th of December, 2025, and this is the Canadian Nightcrawler bin. I don't change my glove out anymore because there are other composting worms in there, but I'm still going to call it the Canadian Nightcrawler bin. If you've been following along, these guys have not been doing well at all, and there might not be any living Canadian Nightcrawlers in here anymore. It's been 6 days since I checked in. I just did I think I did 3 short videos, so like 9 minutes of me looking around. I did find some cocoons, as in old. Interesting. Super freaking interesting. Where are you, camera? See that tail? See that spade-like tail? That might be a Canadian Nightcrawler baby. Okay, as I was saying, I did find a very dark, sort of translucent cocoon. I don't know if the Canadian Nightcrawlers, when I saw them before, had this more darker color, but I have also seen the other composting worms kind of take on that color under certain conditions. I don't know what the conditions are that change their color, but I can't base my identification. I'm not able to base my identification on their color. I think I'm just going to put paper over that guy. So yeah, I found a translucent large cocoon that's clearly Canadian Nightcrawler. Translucent and kind of more dark, but it definitely had a translucent quality to it. So I don't know. I mean, that obviously means that a Canadian Nightcrawler released a cocoon. Worms will do that when they're dying, kind of like plants. You know, a plant will bolt when it believes it needs to hurry up and finish its life cycle. So, like, if you're a gardener, you know that most brassicas, which are the cabbage family, broccoli, cauliflower, arugula, kale, collards, and many more, they prefer cooler temperatures, and they will bolt. Cilantro, which is not a brassica, will also bolt in warmer temperatures. So that means that the plant sends up a flower stalk, and flowers ultimately turn into seed pods and release their seeds. So I read a while ago that it's an interesting color, clitellum. It's a small worm, but that clitellum color reminds me of the Asian jumping worms. Now, it's not impossible for them to be in here, given that there's outside material in here. So yeah, I read a while ago that worms will... no, okay, that looks more like this guy has kind of a similar colored clitellum. That's not an Asian jumping worm. The worms in here look really healthy. But blue worms also have that darker color. But yeah, so I read that worms will sort of do that themselves, that they'll release a cocoon if they're dying. If anyone else has heard that that's not true, let me know. But again, I mean, it's got to be true to some degree, because to my knowledge, almost all the Canadian Nightcrawlers in this bin have died. So I don't know, will their offspring survive? Will they adapt to the bin? Will I save the bin? Because I don't know how I'm going to do what I'm thinking. I want to take out some of this material so I can add new material. And that gets tricky because if, you know, the Canadian Nightcrawlers, if there are babies in here, like, I've never been, yeah, see, what is, it kind of reminds me of the octolasians. That's what that is. I'm almost certain that's an octolasian. That's a native worm that is not a composter. I got tons of them in my garden. I mean, they're not like they're not composter in that way. So, as I was saying, it's been 6 days since I checked on these guys. But it's been 17 days since I added a bunch of plant matter, soil, beet leaves and tops. And I hoped that would help them. I see that we have a swimming pool over here. Oh, shoot. Yeah. No surprise, though. So, because I think I recall adding a ton of water. Because a month or so ago, because it was so dry. There's a lot of worms down there, though. I mean, but they aren't. Ooh, guys, look how far down my hand goes. Here's the surface of the water. Goes to my knuckles. So we got 4 inches. That is the worst. And I know it's not like this across the entirety of the bin, because this bin is on an angle. So really that's all the water's collecting over here. And you see it's muck, so I can actually easily distribute it, the water. But that's super unacceptable. I've got leaves and greens and bananas and blueberries for this bin today. A lot of greens, leaves and packing paper that's already moist. But let's go ahead and pack it. And I also have some shredded paper, dry shredded paper, so that's actually fantastic. I'm going to take a large handful. So the plan was to remove material. I don't know that that's going to happen today, the way that this is going. But I have so much to add that... Alright, so that should absorb a lot of the water nicely. I knew coming down here that my plan to like casually take some of the material out of here was not what I need to do. I need to because I stand over this bin and bend over, I need to get a chair and do this basically formally if I give a hoot. As in, I want to attempt to save any Canadian Nightcrawlers that might be left or their babies. It's a lot of octolasians. I tried to keep them once. I don't think they were happy because I can't think of the names. Anecic are... I think Canadian Nightcrawlers might be anecic. They burrow vertically. They go up to the surface and take food down. And then there's measles. Anyways, these guys are kind of the middle ground. They don't hang out on the surface, but they burrow underneath the surface. And I always find them, like, there are a lot in my garden. They're the worms that always come out when I start digging around. So, this is a pretty dang big worm. But I've seen a lot of people, like for me in my other bins, my worms do not get this big. So I can't just assume that since it's a really big worm, that it's a Canadian Nightcrawler. It could be. But like I said, I've seen other people that this is the size of their European Nightcrawlers. However, don't see the yellow tip of the tail. So this, but he's already got a clitellum and he's not that big. So, I mean, I would call that a European Nightcrawler, except for the size. But again, other people, but there's no yellow, so maybe that is a Canadian Nightcrawler. And that's the thing. When I harvest my other bins, I don't tend to, like, sometimes I don't make a big deal out of getting all the worms out of the material that I harvest, or the cocoons for that matter. If you get taken out, you get taken out. I will sit there and dig a bunch of them out, especially if there's a lot or they're big worms. But in this case, I really, really, really don't want any Canadian Nightcrawlers to go. If it appears they're still in here. See, now this guy, see, yellow tip on the tail. And it's a decent sized worm. I mean, but I don't think that one's a Canadian Nightcrawler. But look at this guy. Wait. Look at this guy. Here we go. This is what I want to see. They're also way more active than the others. See how big this worm is? More red, more purplish. And this guy has a more grayish brown color to him. And his tail was kind of spade-like. Now, I believe this is a Canadian Nightcrawler. Could turn out to be an Asian jumping worm, since I bring in soil from outside and I know they're in my yard. Time will tell once it develops a clitellum. But folks, that is absolutely either a Canadian Nightcrawler or an Asian jumping worm. I don't know if the Asian jumping worms had the spade-like tail. I mean, this guy's color looks like an Asian jumping worm, but it's not a red wiggler, blue worm, or European Nightcrawler. That I can tell you with certainty. So, frick yeah, we have at least one and two, because that one I'm pretty sure was a baby. That I know that baby was, see, yellowtail, was a Canadian Nightcrawler. Or I might find out that I've got a whole bunch of, there's a bunch of our composting friends who I do plan on removing and putting them in one of the other bins. You guys go check out Mixed Worm Bin 2 from today, the 27th of December. That was awesome checking and feeding. This feels even more awesome because I found a Nightcrawler. I'm going to call it a Canadian Nightcrawler for now. But I do believe there's a possibility that it's an Asian jumping worm. I'm not saying I think it is, but I'm saying it's possible. So we're not out of the woods by any means. You know, if I found a whole bunch of them, I found some adults, then I'd be far more confident. But that's not where we're at. So I'm not, and that's the other thing, I'm not finding any adults. I'm not going to be taking material out today like I want to and need to. Because you see, this stuff is done. Now the leaves and stuff that I have, the stuff on the top is actually frozen. It's like some collards, right? Yeah, these are, no, that's Swiss chard. So I'm just going to add shredded paper and leaves kind of all throughout, and then also on top. Maybe part of the problem for the adult population was that as they broke the bin down, I kept adding stuff to the top because I'm like, yeah, they bring their food down. But so if they're anecic and they exist large, you know, they travel vertically, and they prefer to burrow deeply, the soil down there is not regularly going to shift. And in the way that, say, like this upper surface level is going to be changed a lot more. You know, animals are going to come along and dig and scratch, and so way far down. But this isn't soil. This is, you know, 10 inches of where'd it go? See, this is pretty sure this is a cocoon, but the color of it makes me, I mean, is it a cocoon? Is my flash dead? Yes, I did not see my phone say low battery. All right, we need to hurry. That's a Canadian Nightcrawler cocoon. Or I guess it could be a, I need to hurry. So maybe what I really need to be doing is putting like 50% of the bin, the bottom half of the bin, soil. I know that I've seen, I mean, they ship them in, oh, and that's what I was doing a couple times ago. I like seriously basically killed a bunch of worms just by digging around roughly when I still had adult Canadian Nightcrawlers. But maybe I need to have more soil. And I was just saying that, you know, there's water over here. You know, they ship Canadian Nightcrawlers in peat moss. So clearly they raise them in peat moss. Yeah, see how dark all these worms look? But that doesn't automatically mean that they're not composters. Yeah, because there you go, yellowtail. Can't see because there's no light. Yeah, so even over here, it's super wet. And that was the thing, I didn't like how dry it was. And I'm like, is it too dry for them? So I added, was this the bin that I added a gallon of water? Did I do that to multiple bins? Yet we found 0 adults. Which is a super bummer. Okay, well. Maybe that's what can I go outside and get soil? Enough to, hold on. I'd have to empty out this bin and put half soil. Okay, well, yes, I brought in a lot of leaves. I'll probably take the rest of these outside. I don't know though. I think it'd still be good to layer them. But it's still, I'm not putting soil down there. Well, I know I didn't dig around in the middle, but Yeah, and once I put leaves on top, it's going to make... I'm making it difficult for myself to harvest anything. This is how I wound up hurting worms, because look at all those composters. They're happy. They have no complaints about the bin. They're like, don't change anything. Leave it just the way it is. Yeah, this is a huge bin right now. All right. Just kind of filling in more leaves. I think I'm going to take some of these leaves and add them to the top of bins 3 and 4. Bin 4 is now completely harvested. Bin 3, 6 days ago, I moved the material over. It's not harvested at all, but I put half new stuff. So I might top the new stuff with these leaves. All right. Oh, shoot. I've got a bunch of food for this bin. Shoot. This bin is overloaded at this point. All right, I guess we'll go over here. Well, it's not a pocket, but it's going to be a pocket. It's a large feeding, but they're fast food items. Fast because they break down. They're quickly herbs and greens. Actually, let me dig this out a little bit more. Put some leaves under there. Banana. 5 bananas, a banana peel, some blueberries, and a lemon. And then greens. Okay. And then I have a whole other just a little bit of dry mix. Maybe these guys don't like dry mix. More greens. This is arugula. Then we'll put these herbs. Mizuna. Swiss chard. And that's nice big feeding. Now I'm going to add, this is frozen, partially frozen chunk. And so is this, which is composed of some more greens on top from the garden. So I'm going to leave that frozen bit on top. And then I'm going to spread some leaves. My blankets are in the way. Then I'm going to spread some leaves. around the surface. Okay, this bin is super duper full again. I don't know what I'm thinking, but our little baby Canadian Nightcrawler, I'm gonna make sure not to put it on the ice. I don't wanna. I'll let you kind of decide for yourself where to go, but I just didn't want to lay it right over top of the ice. This bin is, like, I talk about the other bins being full, but this bin is literally like completely full. Hopefully it's not. Okay, well, that was super interesting. This stuff is just kind of, let me know what you think in the comments. Oh shoot, I did not give them pomegranate. Well, I'll give that to bin 3 since I'm about to give them some leaves. Be safe, be well. Let me know in the comments what you think. Bye for now.